Jesus is King. Welcome to the 1 Peter 5 podcast, Rebuilding Christendom, Restoring Catholic Culture and Tradition. I'm Timothy Flanders, editor of 1 Peter 5, and I'm joined today by Michaela and Jeremiah Harrison. How are you all doing?
We're
Doing
good.
well. How are you doing, Tim?
Excellent. We're very happy to talk with the Harrisons. It's a very exciting product that has just been published with Sophia Press, and that is the Liturgy of the Home calendar. And we're talking all about that today. This is very exciting to me because for me personally, because my kids love this calendar. I love this calendar. It's a daily joy at the Flanders household. So I've written at 1 Peter 5 that rebuilding Christendom is all about the children. And this is really critical. And it's really a joy that we can all do as Catholics. And we're going to talk all about that today. I want to point viewers to a related series we have at 1 Peter 5, and that is Forgotten Customs. This is being written by Matthew Pleasy, and he's writing a series of articles for all the big feasts about all the forgotten customs. And that's a critical thing that we need to do for children, is restore and sometimes create new customs that are related to all these feasts. And so there's a link below in the show notes to that series. There'll be Martin Mass coming next week. There'll be an article on all the forgotten customs for Martin Mass. And today we're going to talk all about the calendar. And there's a ton of great customs contained in the calendar images, as well as the Harrisons are going to share some other customs as well for the month of November. So let's talk about this wonderful calendar. Let me start by asking, how did you guys get into this originally? Tell us some of the background and the story of creating this.
Well, quick, I'll say one thing, which we're both Benedictine Oblates of the traditional Benedictine monastery we live next to. And as the monks are they're a model. They're a model of how to live the liturgy in every aspect of your lives. And since we sort of live in the shadow of the abbey, the desire in us has grown. It's like, how can we do this too? The monks get to have all the fun, if you will. And how can we do this too? And then, of course, you look around in our world today, how confusing, and there's just so much difficulty going on. How do we anchor ourselves as families with children? So this is really my wife. I'm speaking of, but we've both felt it. And then she's the artist, and she likes to create and make things.
Well, like Tim said, it really does come down to the children. Can we share this with them in a way that they can embrace and participate in? And I think sometimes in the traditional liturgies, the kids get a sense of the sacred, but sometimes they don't understand as much as we would like them to. And so we like my husband Jeremiah was saying, we're very inspired by the monks. And the peace and the stability that they have, and trying to find a peace and a flow and order in our home has been our goal together. And these calendars have really helped to facilitate that in a way that
we're
is
looking for things
that's very approachable to the children. It really started back with Lent. So Lent calendars are pretty popular. There's quite a few of them out there. And I used some different resources I had found. And the children they loved it. They love the Lent calendars, especially because they're offering up sacrifices and they want to know how much longer it's going to last. And they can see how much longer. But then after Lent's done, what about the whole Easter season? I couldn't find a calendar out there for the Easter season. There was one thing. It was a sticker book that Tommy DePaolo had created, but it was out of stock and it was like really expensive. And I was like, can I make my own? And so I tried making.
Or how do you use it? I mean,
yeah, it was a little bit awkward. I remember talking to Father Pryor at the monastery. I was like, what can I do for the Easter season, or like how can I do this more with my kids? And he was like, well, it's kind of it's not the liturgy is not as packed as it is for Lent. So Lent has a special mass for every single day of Lent, whereas Easter is not quite that way. But you have all these saints' feasts, you have the Sunday Gospels, and so the calendar's really evolved, and we've come to add more things to it as we've watched and observed our own children and the questions. And so it's become more and more clear. And so we've really come up with a structure. So it's not just illustrating it, but how we illustrate it tells the story. And we like to use the word narrative. It's a narrative because it's not only the individual feast days, but their relationship to each other. And the liturgical year is us reliving annually the whole life of Christ. And the
journey
saints,
of the church.
The liturgy of the church, yes. And the saints are all living that with us. So their feast days, where they fall on the year, are all part of that narrative. So anyway, we can go into more specifics of the calendar.
So you I guess, everyone has a liturgical calendar they put on their wall, right? You get those calendars that are put out by the fraternity or the different presses out there, and each calendar has a beautiful image on the top, and it's got the little white boxes down below where you write your notes, and it tells you the saint of the day and the feast of the day. We all are used to that. We all have that, but we realized we felt like we needed something more, especially for kids. And you consider like that the faith was transmitted for a very long time, amongst those who could not read, using art and stained glass windows. And I mean, just look at the magnificent altarpieces on the churches of medieval Europe, the church itself. And you could appreciate this, coming from the East. You go into the Eastern churches and all of the walls and the ceiling are covered with the imagery. The whole story is told. And I feel like we need something like that for our home. And this calendar project has become, it's almost like we didn't start with this question, but it's become this thing. And the idea is, what can we put in our home that can be a focus point that sort of shows everything? And it a little thing that can help keep you aware and grounded all year long. So not just Lent, not just Advent, but all year long. And that calls to mind visually just a token of what the church is having us meditate on. Because the whole idea is that we want families and kids to use this as a tool to help them remember and then to go dig more. There's so much more in the liturgy that we could ever pack on just a simple little illustrated calendar you put on your wall. But the idea is to be a constant reminder. I mean, and through that, for families to enter into the liturgy, and we're hoping to be a piece of that rebuilding of Christian culture by, you could say, slowly turning our homes into like little monasteries, the domestic church, right? So we need beautiful things to put up. And this whole project just sort of sprung up from all the things she described. And then this thing has taken a life of its own, and it's in its present form. But I'm hoping as we go forward, we need a few more things, in the Middle Ages was so replete with so much beautiful art. We need artists creating that kind of thing again, adorning our churches first and foremost, but then also our homes.
Well, so one thing, Timothy, is I saved some images to show the audience of where I'm pulling some of these concepts from, reference images. We don't have to go into it right now.
I know. No.
Just because what the work that I'm doing is very humble in comparison to what I'm inspired by, but it's fitting because it's for the home. But the church has in her church, has just a rich heritage of beautiful art. So
yes, absolutely. I wanted to share one comment from Wesley. He says, very grateful for their products, instrumental to our family being introduced to traditional Catholicism and the TLM. My kids love waking up every morning to see what saint day it is.
Oh,
that I can. Yeah, this is what myself, my own family, my own kids, and also Kennedy Hall. He was the one who introduced me originally to this. I think what's so great about your calendars is that, as you mentioned, Christendom, when and where it exists in a whole social community, it immerses the children in a whole social fabric of a liturgical rhythm which permeates the whole community and the city, the village. There's festivals, processions, all sorts of things like that. And if we're living in a world that doesn't have that, your calendar nevertheless opens that
Just like a little
greatness
window
of Christendom into the domestic church to begin that restoration right there.
Well, you know, you've written that book that's coming out, The City of God versus the City of Man. You know, and it occurred to me that we're all destined for heaven. But while we're here in this world, I think we need to try to shape it as much as we can to resemble heaven. And I think in the Middle Ages, that's just what they did. And so I guess as we're seeing a renewal of tradition, even if all you have control over is your house, shape it as best you can and live it. And it'll catch on like a fire, we're hoping. I mean, and that's, in a sense, the monks, that's what the monks do. That their whole house is ordered that way. And so living next to them, we want to, you say it, and this is for the children, but I'm struck by, we are all children still, in a way. And there's that, well, I think we all know the scripture, unless you become like a little child, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven.
Part of with the calendars that I've noticed, even like priests and seminarians that come in, like that they know their stuff even better than I do. And they'll look at the calendar and they'll be in a state of wonder because they're looking at how everything's connected, because visually, for the first time for many of them, they're seeing the relationship, because in images, you can see multiple things at once. Whereas when you're going through the liturgy, it's one day at a time. And so that state of just wonder and noticing things is, I think, a gift from God. I'm glad to get to help with it.
Yes, definitely a gift from God, and this work is a gift that you're giving to the faithful, to the church. So, Michaela, you wanted to talk about some of your inspirations.
Yeah. So maybe we can toggle back and forth between the source images and then the Advent calendar. So we'll go ahead and bring up
show some of the imagery.
So here's the Advent calendar here. You all can see it, I hope.
We can go to your source images first.
Well,
yeah, and if you zoom in on your computer, that'll zoom in on the broadcast as well.
Do you want to talk about the calendar first?
Let's go to Advent. The Advent calendar. Okay. We'll go back. There we go. Okay. There we go. Oh, did it go?
Stay in.
Sorry. I hope it doesn't make y'all dizzy. So this is the Advent calendar. I guess I'll talk a little bit about how these calendars are created. What you're seeing is one piece, but really all this is created individually. So each image is painted, or it is designed, painted at a much larger size, and then it's like a puzzle where we scan it in and then shrink it. And my sister Kateri does all the Photoshop stitching to bring it together. If we were to paint this all together, it would like fill a wall. It'd be way too big. So that's why we do it in pieces. It also gives us flexibility. So each year we can shift the pieces around where they need to go, because saints' feast days don't always fall on the exact same day of the week. You'll also notice that there's the individual days, but then there's the frame. And the frame is designed based upon the season and the different things the church is meditating on that season. So for these penitential seasons, being this one's Advent, and then for Lent, we chose to do a wood frame. This one's kind of fun because I knew I wanted to do wood, but I decided to do the wood inlay, and that was kind of a new feature. Right. I try to put different architectural elements in each frame. So actually, I did have a source image for both. I pulled some wood inlay picture, and then also the style of the wood is kind of taken loosely off of what's this called?
Timber frame.
Timber frame. Thank you. So go ahead. So like, see this arch here. So I go and I look up different pictures and then kind of, okay, how are certain joinery done? It's not perfect. Don't look too closely at the calendars, but it's inspired by
right.
timber frame. And then the next one, this is an example of what's called wood inlay. So it's just different kinds of wood that are cut and then laid in to make a picture. So that's how the design of the mantles.
That's how these are, graphically designed.
Could you explain to them briefly just the week, how the layout of the week?
Right. Way the way these calendars take their cues from sacred time, not so much the way it's, organized secular time so that, Sunday has a place of primacy. That's why it's larger. The way the frames tell you the rank of feasts, you'll notice these different frame types, and you'll notice these numbers down here. It tells you the corresponding ranks. You could see, visually. And each week begins with Sunday, goes through Saturday, and each of our calendars covers 4 weeks of time. So we have this unique sort of, because of the formats that we're in, each calendar is able to cover a maximum of 4 weeks of time, each spread, basically. And so many seasons that are actually longer than that, like Easter being 7 weeks, will take up 2 spreads. But it gives us a kind of creativity, because like here you see at the end of the week, this is Christmas Eve. Christmas Day falls on a Saturday. So we're able to take but we don't illustrate Christmas Day until the next spread. So how that falls, whether or not, because Christmas, one of these years will actually be on a Monday, right? And so you'll have the fourth Sunday of Advent, but then we'll have all of this space to sort of draw. So every year will change in that respect, but it gives us these creative pockets to do illustrations that continue to illustrate different particular aspects of that season.
And our hope, so part of why we've really thought carefully through how we lay this out is so a child can come up to this calendar and recognize, oh, it's an arch with words at the bottom. That's a second class feast. Or, oh, the words at the bottom, but it's flat on the top. That's third class. Or if it's got the smaller image with the scroll on the top and the bottom, that's a fourth class or a feria. And I mean, it's reinforced by the Roman numeral at the bottom of which class feast, but even a child that can't read or recognize that can slowly learn that.
Yes, my children always would identify the red, what I would call the red martyrs, because they've got the red, and my 3-year-old would point out all the red martyrs because there's the red ribbon.
Yep. Well, that's our goal, is that kids will.
And they always have a poem. Always
well, they're supposed to. Some of the saints I haven't. I'm still trying to make sure that all the saints have a palm. Or we've also developed a little bit of a added thing where if it's a commemoration of a saint, those are handled a little differently. Where there's the little side cutout, like here.
So
this
here
is
on the 10th of December.
Right. So this little cutout shows that it's a commemoration. Right. So if there's not another image, sometimes I'll actually put the saint in the main frame and then put the symbol of the saint in their commemoration cutout.
See, I'll show you an example.
Are we gonna skip to one of them?
I'll show them.
I wanted to just for viewers, I wanted to show real quick what this looks like in when you actually get it. It's a high quality printout. That ends up being like this. So what we like to do is we like to put it down on a low coffee table, and then all my children look at it, so they all can look at it really up close, because there's so much detail that you've packed into every little nook and cranny of this. And so then they just look at it, and there's all these little things. Like I remember for Good Shepherd Sunday during Eastertide, you had this wonderful little image of Jesus, the Good Shepherd, with a staff facing the wolf, and my 2 sons loved that image. It was so much fun. But my wife, we had talked about buying some kind of like hard plastic frame or something to stick them in every season. But just so viewers understand how this gets printed out when you buy it, this is how it ends up.
We don't even have our copy yet. I'm really excited. It should be coming soon.
You or your wife sent us a picture of the copy that y'all got it, and I wanted to send a picture back of Michaela and I, like looking at the camera.
Yeah, saying, like trying to look at it.
Yeah, trying to see, because we haven't gotten ours yet.
Oh man. Right. Yeah, and just so everybody knows, we got questions in the chat. You can buy it at the link below in the show notes. It's from Sophia Press. The very first link in the show notes below in YouTube. You can buy at it's right now it's a $25 subscription, and it's going to be what you'll receive is just the Advent Christmas cycle, and then you'll get more of them. We'll talk about details in time, but
quarterly subscription, $25 a quarter for basically 4 times a year. So you'll be 4 or 5 sheets per section. Like for example, volume 2, which we're feverishly working on now, will actually be 5 sheets, because Septuagesima. And then 2 sheets for Lent, 2 sheets for Easter.
Here's a
So
question real quick from Alex. What's happening with the old Liturgy of the Home memberships?
we're about to fire. So I've been rebuilding our members area, and I've got a whole new rollout, and hopefully I'm aiming for about November the 21st. I need to have the first installments of the companion guide, because there's a companion guide that goes with these calendars. It's only online right now. It's digital only. Eventually we'd like to publish it, but it'll go through each and every day, and it will go through a complete, like, because you probably noticed when you got your posters in the mail, there was a little companion guide, a small one that just explained the overall details. I want to go into detail. So with that will be available to everybody who purchases the companion guide. But the Liturgy of the Home memberships, where we have the coloring pages for each day, the monthly dedications, I'll be opening those up about a week before Advent. So everybody who's already in, you'll have a new members area that looks better than last time. And we're hoping to add a lot of new members, because the calendar is meant to be one piece of several that we're trying to make a suite of different things that families can use in their homes to live the liturgy. And we have some aspirations to really grow the membership into something bigger, but we're taking it, right now the calendar project, it's consuming all of our time. But I would like to get a music section in the membership where we actually record and have the sheet music that we make for, like, old hymns that need to be rediscovered. For example, we all know, I still have to fix that I see that. Yeah, there's that website issue. I'm the web guy, so I know I've got some.
Well, I just wanted to show viewers, I'll put this link as well. So liturgyofthehome.com, this is the Harrison family company, basically, that's producing then this calendar, which is very much the bedrock of everything. But as Jeremiah is explaining, there's a whole companion guide for all the different things. For example, there's coloring pages for the kids for all of these different saints, all sorts of great stuff. So it looks like, Jeremiah, it looks like people can go to membership info and click put me on the waiting list. Is that where people should go right now?
Yep. If you're interested, when I give the final announcement, just give us your email there, and you'll be finding out word, by around the 21st or so of November. We want to give time for folks to print, items to be able to use. The idea is, once you're in, there's materials that you could come and use every day, if you want, every day or every week, to go, help celebrate the liturgy in your family.
Yeah.
So
Wesley says the coloring pages are great. Kids love doing that every day.
Yes,
wonderful
they do.
fun for homeschool.
Well, also for me, like a lot of moms, there's a lot of great coloring pages out there. Some are a lot better than mine even. But I don't know if you're a mom and you have kids that really want to do it right, they're going to ask you every single color. What color should this be, Mom? What color should that be, Mom? And you're like, okay, just color whatever color. But part of the beauty is that every coloring page also has a corresponding picture that it goes with that is already colored. So you can just say, look at the calendar, dear, and you can see the colors, and it makes that part much easier.
Sweet. Yeah. Well, I just sidetracked us because I just wanted to show the viewers what this actually looks like. But definitely go to liturgyofthehome.com. You can sign up for the waiting list to get on the refounded website as well.
And I'm hoping as I was explaining a little bit, I'm hoping we can add some new stuff. So our goal, if we could get where we really want to go, is to have a whole suite, even to have like recipes, to have music. For example, there's a lot of hymns that used to be sung during Advent. It's not just Christmas carols. I mean, even we don't even know that we're trying to pull these things back. We have some friends and neighbors who know of a lot of old hymns and music that used to be sung at Advent. You've got like for Martin Mass and other seasons of the year. So we want to put together a whole, we want to have several things and have it all collated and organized together to where a busy mom could hop on and see everything right there at her disposal for that week. Because there's a lot of stuff out there online, but it's not all organized and collated and brought together in a way that really, fits artistically and stuff. So that's kind of the unique charism that we're trying to go for, God willing. And this calendar is like you said, it's the first piece. But if we can continue, if this, enough people like this, and I think we're filling a need, this is where we want to grow into.
Yep.
This is what a great fruit of really the monastery. I mean, this is just Christendom being built by the grace of God, because this is what has always happened. The monastery goes off and they go found a monastery, and then the faithful gather around the monastery, and they slowly build a village and a city. And what you're doing is you're doing that. It's flowing the grace.
Trying.
And but this is so exciting. My wife bought the. I think it's Sophia Press also publishes the Cooking with the Saints cookbook, and just the little things that we do every year, the recipes, the songs, all sorts of fun stuff. Anyways, do you want me to put up your screen again?
Sure. You want to continue?
Yeah, because we want to finish showing them the commemoration.
Sure.
The little updated.
We'll go back to where we were in the imagery.
So this is kind of a new feature because we wanted to show more of the saints that were commemorations, but without confusing the children, because it's still a feria. The mass of the day is still generally the previous Sunday. So we still have a little cutout, which that little arch there on the side that tells you that Saint Prisca is a commemoration. But you see her in the main image, but it's a smaller image. It's got a quote taken from the liturgy in the scroll at the top and bottom. So the saint is helping to serve as an example of the liturgy, or of our meditation on that liturgy. But the symbol of the saint is now in the commemorations spot. So you have the palm and the crown and the star. But that's why it's not red at the bottom. So that could confuse the children. They're like looking for the red martyr. She's holding the palm. The palm is in the commemoration spot, but the mass, the priest will be wearing green because it's a feria.
And basically to explain this, like in our previous, the way we were doing it, we always had a commemoration. You always had a picture of the saint in the actual image. But we noticed that there are some commemorations where it's a feria day. Like this right here, you see on your screen, this is a saint's feast day. This is Saint Hilary, and with a commemoration of Saint Felix. And so you have a picture of Saint Felix and the spider. But there are many days which are just a feria. So, and we ordinarily would find imagery from the liturgy, from Dom Guéranger, and we realized, wait a minute, we have a commemoration here, so we can actually put the saint there. And that's why Michaela thought, well, if we're going to do that, what are we going to put in that little cove that we always have for our commemorations? And so we put the symbols there.
So here you have St. Prisca there on the left, and then on the right, this is it's a family, Martha.
It's Marius, Martha, Artifacts, and Abacum.
Thank you. So that's why there's 4 crowns and 4 palms, because they were all martyrs. And this is showing them they were early Christians that buried the martyrs. And so this is showing them in that act of burial. You got to see the shovel in the background. There's a palm laying across the person to show that that's a martyr. And then from the liturgy, I believe it's from the it's either the gradual or something, where it says instant in prayer, pursuing hospitality. No, I'm sorry. This is from the epistle. This is them being an example of that. So that's why we've kind of been growing the language,
because this is showing hospitality to the dead,
right?
And that
one of the corporal works of mercy,
right? Yeah. So
Excellent.
I think that was just our explaining sort of the basic structure. In the actual calendar you're seeing right now, this is our Epiphany calendar,
right? And
I guess I'll take a moment just to show one of my favorite pieces, which you guys know, but because earlier we talked about how this medium allows us to depict things all together. So here in the season of Epiphany, the church has always held that Epiphany is there's 3 epiphanies. There's a threefold epiphany, and even tradition holds, as far as you know, that they all actually happen on January the 6th of different years. You have the wise men coming to our Lord, and you have the baptism of the Jordan and the wedding feast of Cana. Well, in the season of Epiphany, those feasts always line up in this kind of configuration. So we took the opportunity. You see the star over the Magi sends out 2 rays, which land upon 2 other days. The following Thursday is the baptism of our Lord, and then another ray on the second Sunday, which is where they read the gospel, the wedding feast of Cana. So there's just this project, like we discovered that, like we were drawing and we were reading about that, and we realized, wait a minute, these feasts, like I did not know prior to working on this with my wife, that these feasts always occur right there in that season of Epiphany. And so there's just been so many opportunities with this medium to depict those things in the borders and the imagery.
You want to know something else kind of fun? This is an example of like I'm still learning as I'm working on it. So I came to find out after I'd drawn it that the rays of light coming from the star, if you go down to here, see how, so on this scene right here, the ray of light is right. It's both going through Jesus's hand and Mary's hand is right there on that ray of light. And then when you go down to the wedding feast at Cana and the ray comes down, look, there's Jesus's hand in blessing, and then there's Our Lady's hand. And I just thought, wow, like without even necessarily intending that, it shows the special relationship between Our Lady and Mediatrix of Grace, and then Christ, you know. I don't know. It just,
you never tell. I
phenomenal.
didn't know that.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So even like I'm still noticing connections as I'm doing compositions that I didn't even necessarily think about intentionally, but I realize they're there. And so that gives me courage that even despite having, you know, four little kids and homeschooling and living out, it's like, okay, I think God really wants me to do this, because sometimes I'm like, how are we doing this project even?
I mean, to speak of that, I mean, the way I felt for a while is I feel like we're working in a little company, the upper management of which is up in heaven, just the things that have sort of the doors open. I mean, the fact that we're talking here with you and that you guys found it and that you have a poster now, it was Sophia. You know, the fact that we're able to get published with Sophia has just been a huge boon. They reached out to me. You know, I was wanting to talk to them, but they actually reached out to me first. So many things have just fallen in place. Which we've kind of needed them.
And I would say like a lot of
keep going.
The majority of mothers that I know, that I have talked to, that want to live the liturgy in live the liturgical year in their home more, most of them are overwhelmed. Most of them feel like they're not doing a very good job. I am right there with everybody else. And so this whole project's really come because this helps. It makes it a lot easier, and it's helped my family. So I'm not coming as one that's got it all figured out, but I am learning and sharing what I have.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about Christendom, is that there's sort of this cultural momentum which happens, as you said, Jeremiah. There's the upper management in heaven, which is the graces that are making this thing happen, and then there's also just the momentum that happens between families as we share with one another and help each other. And this is the great way of doing that. How about tell us more about how do you come up with all of the imagery? You mentioned Guéranger. Tell us more about how this comes together.
Shall we show them some of the source images?
Yeah, well, let's go back to the Advent source images, because that is where the images come from. But as far as the content and the layout, you know, I'm not creating it, I'm discovering it and then drawing it. So I do try to read through as much of the commentary of Dom Guéranger as I can, because I feel like he's the central figure for putting it all together. And there's a whole story behind his relationship to our monastery here and us. But and then I also have some other sources that I pull from, because for us, for families, we're trying to not only enter into the liturgy of the church more, but also the cultural elements. So like the monastery, they follow their own monastic traditions, but there's a lot of cultural traditions that came from, especially from Europe during the medieval times. So I do try to pull from like Maria von Trapp. I have a book by Father Weiser about the different traditions. So I do read other sources and then try to pull those in. So when I look and I follow the fraternity calendar as far as the main structure of what saints are, you know, on what days. Different calendars are slightly different. And then I do try to pull in historical feast days as well, but they are put in like the frame. They're never like
so you can see one here on the 10th of December, historically, it's Feast of Our Lady of Loretto.
Right. So it's not on the old calendar. It's on the new calendar. It's a historical feast day. So, but because it's special, I wanted to put it there. So the frame is really where I have a lot of flexibility. And then newer saints, I also sometimes will put in the frame as well. So like here's Juan Diego. He's on the new calendar. So he's in the frame. But see, you have him here. There, he's kneeling, facing Our Lady there. And so, anytime that there's and any newer saints that are 1800s or later, they're drawn in oval frames as they would be represented either by photograph or as miniatures that were painted from that style. So kids can also recognize.
So for example,
they can also recognize the newer ones, but they're depicted without. That's why there's no halo, no title, because it's meant to be as a photograph. And so I don't want to get into it too much. There is debate about some of the newer canonizations and the changes to the canonization process that I'm very aware of.
Well, then we've had to think too. This is a traditional calendar. Where it so how far? What do we do for integrating old and new? We've really had to wrestle with that, and so we've decided to place our anchor in the traditional calendar. But then,
But I do so many people have even said it'd be safer to just leave off the new saints, but I've really thought a lot about it. And at this point, I feel like those persons should be there because the calendar is a living thing. It's not a museum piece, but I also want to be careful that my goal is to get this in front of as many children and families as possible. And so in order to avoid making a statement or saying one way or the other, these newer saints are depicted in this way, which lets the kids know that they're newer saints, but also it allows the parents to present to their children how they see fit. So if in their home, if they accept the newer canonizations, they can say this is, Saint so-and-so. And if they're kind of uncertain about it, they can just say this was a really holy person, or Saint, this Gianna Molla was a mother who gave her life for her child. Like we want the parents to be the ones that choose how to teach their children. And in this time of confusion in the church, we just don't want to be a stumbling block. So we're not saying one way or the other, but we're just trying to get this to as many people as possible. And I hope that that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I really I think you've done a great job really integrating this. It's what I've always loved about the TAN calendar, which combines them all together.
Right.
But your calendar really obviously brings it all to life. Do you want to speak at all about anything about the customs?
Yes. Let me just start with, I said this on another channel as well. For me, my heart is for mothers, especially mothers dealing with burnout. If you're trying to homeschool and you've got a bunch of kids, it's very common to deal with burnout and feeling overwhelmed. So I would say to those mothers, if they're able to get the calendar and put it up, they've done something, because the kids will go up to it on their own generally. Different kids are different, obviously, and they'll ask the mother the questions, and it takes the initiative a little bit off the mother. If she's feeling like, okay, I want to do a little bit more, where's a good place to start doing, living the faith a little more in our home? I want to encourage celebrating the feasts of your children's namesakes. I feel like that's really a good way to begin if you're going to choose, like, well, what feast day? That's a really important place to start. So, and obviously different saints' feasts have different customs. So you could look up, depending upon what your children's names are or what their confirmation saints are, you can choose. After that, I feel like the next thing is, they're not necessarily in this order, but one of the other very important things is baptismal anniversaries, because that's also very personal. So I think, bringing the our faith and making it personal to the children will really help them as they're growing up to own it. So the day that they were baptized, decide.
And you have a form where that based upon.
We've kind of come up with a way of commemorating that. This all began because our oldest son was born on Christmas, and we thought, how are we going to handle the presents? How are we going to make sure he doesn't feel left out? And then it just kind of
it's taken a life of its
own. Taken a life of its own. Now my whole family does it this way, at least for all the for our children, for our niece and nephew that live nearby. So we went and got I researched, and I want to make this available on our website. It's not up there yet, but we have a ceremony that we do. We try to invite the godparents. We actually do gift opening on our children's baptismal anniversaries rather than on their birthdays. Unless it's a gift given by a relative who's not Catholic, then we let
on my side.
we let them open gifts from those people on their birthdays. But from all their Catholic, relatives and friends, they usually get them on their baptismal anniversary. So I created a file, which I want to make it digitally available. It's front and back. This is just the renewal of the baptismal promises. And we do this every year. The children, we set up I should say, in our home, we have a special place. It's a feast day table. And so anytime we have anything special, we set up the feast day table to reflect what's going on. So for the baptismal anniversary, we have their, I let them choose what statue they want on there. They have their, we have the Paschal candle. So each year I try at Easter to make a Paschal candle. This one's been through 2 years already. So it's just, it's a candle. And then you buy just wax and cut it. This one I had some paper cut out that I put on it. Anyway, this is a Paschal candle. The numbers have burned down. So we have that on the table. And then the children's baptismal candle, and during the ceremony their candle is lit from the Paschal candle, which is a reflection of what happens in the baptismal ceremony. I would like also on our website sometime, telling my husband not every time, I want to make available just simple. So this is a normal candle. We get these from the monastery, but you can buy them anywhere.
Hand dipped beeswax
candle. And then you can also buy just wax. There's little sheets of wax off like Amazon. And then you cut them in different shapes. And it's really simple because you just cut them out and you just use the warmth of your hand to press it in to the candle. And so you can cut out different shapes. That's our daughter's baptismal candle. This one is my son. So it has a different cross, a different shell. But if we could just make available templates, I'll show that on our website, people could just buy on like Amazon or wherever you can, a craft store. You buy wax, cut it out, and then I paint it on top of the wax, but you don't have to do that. And then this is a German custom of putting the sacraments that the child has received. So this is confirmation, first communion, first confession, and obviously the shell symbolizes baptism. But the idea is as the child grows, they add the other sacraments that they receive. And then at their wake, their candle is burned all the way down and out. So this candle stays with them for their life. Now, I came across this tradition after my children had already been baptized, and I had the little candle, they give you that comes along with it. And so I thought, well, I want that part too. So I just took the old candle and I dripped the wax from the old candle on top of the new candle. So it still has their old original baptismal candle with it. So that had to take a little creativity, but you don't have to do all that. I just wanted to show what we've developed over the years, but we've been doing this for the last 10 years, I think. And our kids, they have all their baptismal promise responses memorized, like even the little ones can do it, and we sing a song, and it's just a cultural thing that's kind of grown. We didn't grow up with it, but our kids are growing up with it, and it's hopefully growing deeper.
I've come to realize I think it really matters a lot. You see, because the kids every year they're being asked those questions, and every year now that they're old enough, they're responding with their own voice.
Right.
And I feel that something's taking root in them by this recognition, and they see all their siblings doing the same thing too.
I wish we had a picture I could show you of one of our ceremonies, but maybe we'll just post it on our website. Yeah. If you check our website, we'll try to have a section for baptismal anniversaries.
Not quite yet, but it'll get there.
Not yet.
You have a table that you decorate for the baptismal day. You've got the candles and everything, and then you have on that baptismal certificate renewal, you then have a little liturgy that you do.
So
yes, it's basically patterned. It's patterned after what is said during the baptismal ceremony, but it's a renewal. And so, Jeremiah or whoever is the leader will say, like, Abigail, do you renounce Satan? And then Abigail will respond, I do renounce him and all his works. I do renounce them. And after she's done her whole profession of faith, then the baptism, she lights her own baptismal candle from the Paschal candle. And then, Jeremiah will say, the light of Christ has been entrusted to you. So you guard the grace of your baptism without blame. And it goes on. And then we have a space on there for a litany of the saints for our family. So on the template, it's blank. You could put in the saints of your family. And then we all pray together, Our Father, Hail Mary, and Glory Be. And then we all sing a song called May the Lord Bless and Keep You, that we all sing to the child on their baptismal anniversary. And then there's a consecration of the child to the Blessed Virgin that the parents say. I might also put in one that the child could say as they get older to reconsecrate themselves to Our Lady. I don't have that currently on this one. And then we usually have dessert and the kids open their presents, and it's a really lovely day. The kids love it. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, we've got about 15 more minutes. We could talk more about the calendar or any other customs in November.
Yep.
November.
This is very simple as well. I love simple but beautiful things. So what we do is we have a printout. I got this from, I think, Shower of Roses originally. I don't know where she got it from. It's a blank template, and you can put in on each day a different soul of a deceased family member or friend. So that way, instead of just praying for all the souls for the whole month, you kind of have specific people that you pray for on each day of the month of November. And then for my kids, I printed out just a collage of different people that they know that have passed away. And so that way, when we say, oh, today we're praying for Grandpa Lenore, well, here's the picture, of Grandpa Lenore. So the kids, they can kind of put a face to a soul. And I feel like, I kind of put them all in like this kind of sepia tone, just to kind of help reinforce that they're on the other side of the veil, rather than doing color images, because kids see color images, they think of people that are still, present in this life. So it kind of helps in that. So that's basically what we do. We have a graveyard nearby. We try to go visit the graveyard and pray for the people there. And visiting graveyards is a very important custom for children, and teaching them proper etiquette in a graveyard is very important. They don't always naturally know. You don't walk over graves. Like, no, there's the body of the person is here. And death can be kind of a scary thing for children. But I feel like as we introduce these customs the church has had, it gives us a comfort. Like, this is how we think about it. This is how they're our friends, and we're here. We can help them,
Right.
And they can help us.
Well, and then, you just recently had your podcast a few days ago where you went over the Day of the Dead, the four of you guys, and you talked about that 15th century piece with the Dance of the Dead, the way the skeletons were coming, and they would come to a bishop, and they that we've got to bring those back. We need those back. Our culture is so filled with these ghoulish depictions of goblins and death and all this stuff that's all scary, and it's meant to incite fear. We've got to bring back, take up space for what a truer representation of death and how we ought to feel towards it, how we ought to be towards it.
I'll say, I want to do, so we've been talking about things to do in the home, but there's a whole other topic, which is community. What can you do as a community? We just had two really important events. One was the pilgrimage. There was the Three Hearts pilgrimage to the monastery. It's a 3-day pilgrimage that
over 900 people came from all over the country and walked 34 miles through the countryside here in Oklahoma, which can be kind of rough.
Yeah, well, so my husband and my two sons did it. My youngest son did the entire thing without using the buses at all for the
34 miles. I mean, me and Patrick, we had to fall out at some point. We pushed ourselves as far as we could go.
But anyway, you could just see the impact that it had on the children to be seeing all these other people walking and suffering, offering up this as penance for what's going on in the world. And my son, Nico, he was determined. He was going to walk the whole way, and he got sick afterwards because he pushed himself so hard. He's almost 8. But he was really impressed by seeing these other people walking, and he was going to do it too. You know, part of me is like, no mom wants to see your kid get sick, but to also be like, well, but the good for the soul of that inspiration really made a big difference. And my other son, Patrick, he was talking to me about, you know, some of the boys he saw that ended up being on crutches for a few days afterwards because they were so sore from walking this pilgrimage. So I wanted to mention that, but then also we just had our All Saints Day party, and one of our neighbors is incredibly knowledgeable, and she introduced. We were all around the bonfire, and we were praying for the souls on because is even the Feast of All Saints. It was the Vigil of All Souls, and so in the night, while we were praying for the holy souls together, she had some of the older children dressed up in white carrying candles, and they were walking kind of on the perimeter of the yard off in the distance, and that kind of represents the souls, just to kind of have that visual.
The souls were coming and visiting us as we were praying
right
for
she
them.
said that during those 3 days of the Vigil of All Saints, and then All Souls, it's kind of a triduum. And traditionally, culturally, it was a time when the veil between the different what do you call? There's church militant, church suffering, and church triumphant. And during those 3 days, the veil between those different groups is very thin, and they can kind of be closer to us in a way during that time. And so it was just interesting to have the bonfire and to see these candle-lit figures kind of off in the distance while we were praying for the holy souls. And then the kids were all singing a soul cake song, because an old custom said it before trick-or-treating and all that. It was people would go around and they would offer to pray for the souls of deceased family members in exchange for treats. And so there's a song, my kids all were singing it, and with the group, and it's a soul cake, a prayer
for a soul cake. Yeah.
And so then after they sang the song, then everyone got donuts.
Beautiful.
So anyway, just these are some cultural things that, you know, you may not be able to be near people that are doing this, but maybe over time we will do that more and more, and our kids will see this is a community thing as well. It's not just we're doing it in our home, but we'll work
fantastic there. Yeah, well, the monastery is very much definitely a great beating heart of Christendom in North America to a great degree. There's other centers, obviously, but the Three Hearts pilgrimage, does that happen every fall?
Every year,
in October.
Okay.
It's patterned after the pilgrimage of Chartres, so it's a lot of similarities in how it's structured.
34 miles. You camp out 2 nights. Then when they come into the church, the Abbey Church, it's to a lot of fanfare. It's really a sight to behold. The mass is packed. They have the church packed wall to wall, and they're, there's organized in the chapters, and the chapters have their banners and flags. And so, at this time we were privileged. When Pat and I fell out, I actually went back home just for a little bit because we live right next to the monastery. Well, the route of the pilgrimage came right in front of our house. So we stepped outside and just watched the whole train. And Nico, of course, was in the train.
He came past us. His face was smiling and beaming.
Even somebody on the pilgrimage said, "Hey, we love your calendars."
We're like, hi.
I'm not sure if we even mentioned the name of the monastery, but we are talking about Our Lady of Clear Creek Abbey. That's the Benedictine monastery in Oklahoma.
Yeah. If you can come, make a
retreat.
Make a retreat there. It's a great place. We need more of them. There's another beautiful house, Gower, the nuns, the Benedictine nuns in Gower, but Clear Creek, I guess we're partial to that. We're oblates there, but we need monasteries like this all over the U.S.
Yeah.
And already, Clear Creek, they're busting at the seams. They already have preparing, a foundation in the next several years in New Mexico. So, but this is how it goes, right?
Yes.
This is how we're going to rebuild, the kingdom of Christ on earth.
How much time do we have? Are we out?
I mean, it's flexible. We've got time. We've got one Canadian says that Darren 31 says, if the borders open up, we're coming from Canada next October.
Oh, we look forward to seeing you. God willing, that'll happen.
Boy. It's astounding what's happening now. I mean, it's just amazing. It's like the Iron Curtain falling here. It's hard. I don't know. It's wild.
When you see 900 people walking, down your street carrying banners, for Christ's kingdom, it's like, okay, this is the future.
Right.
We
Yeah.
just gotta, keep doing that.
Yeah. Well,
So-
anything else y'all want to go over?
I just wanted to briefly give a little bit of the history of our connection with Dom Guéranger. I want to go into too long, but so we live by Clear Creek Abbey, as you mentioned. The mother house of Clear Creek is Faucombeau in France, and the mother house of Faucombeau is Salem. And Salem was founded by Dom Guéranger, so it's like the grandmother. And so we have a very familial connection with Dom Guéranger, and the liturgical year that he wrote was obviously hugely instrumental, and more people are coming to discover it and learn about it. It's a bit daunting, so we got it as a wedding gift. It's like a how many volume set? It's
15 volumes.
It's on our shelf. It's like all these books. So part of why the calendars they're kind of helping to bring that what's contained in those books, bring some of it to where it's more accessible to children. Right. But the other thing I wanted to mention also is that the reason why we have Clear Creek is because of a special program called the Pearson Program, which was put together by John Senior, Professors Nellick and Quinn back during the crazy 60s at KU, the university. And some people will be familiar with Senior because he wrote the book, The Death of Christian Culture, and then The Restoration of Christian Culture. So there were so many conversions coming from the secular humanities program that these three professors put together that they ended up eventually shutting it down because they said they must be brainwashing these kids. But in fact, so many of them ended up converting, and then many of them went over to Faucombeau and to other monasteries of the Salem congregation because they said, where can we go live this beautiful life that we've been discovering through the humanities program? And Dr. Senior directed them. He said, well, in some of these monasteries in France, they're still living this Christian culture. And so they went searching and they found it. And then what happened is there's so many Americans over there in these monasteries that they eventually sent them back with a few French monks to start Clear Creek.
And that was always Dr. Senior's desire. He wanted to get a monastery. He wanted to see a monastery founded, I believe, next to the college there in Kansas.
But I think the Pearson program, it was really founded on wonder, and wisdom begins in wonder. And so I think the heritage that we've kind of have being attached to this monastery is both coming from the Pearson program with Dr. Senior, and then also from Dom Guéranger and the congregation of Salem. And so the calendars are in a way sort of a what do you call it? They kind of come from that.
It's a fruit.
So I just wanted to share that.
That is fantastic. I had no idea that there was that connection between John Senior. I mean, I'd heard of that great story, which was a very much a light in the darkness at that time, of these men, these professors, Catholic professors, talking about literature and awakening something in people that brought them to the faith. But I think that your calendar really manifests for the children and for all of us. I mean, as I said, I love it too. It's this great childlike wonder that you awaken in the way that this beauty connects us with God, who is beauty.
Yes, that's my hope. I'm glad to be an instrument to help with that.
Yeah, that's all we're trying to be.
Yep.
Really, is just there's good to rebuild Christendom is going to take lots and lots of laborers. And this is just one. I like to think of these calendars as kind of like it's a token, a little icon of icons. I mean, it's not a real icon, but the way it's all synthesized together. And I'm hoping that this work of ours just inspires both an increase of devotion, well, for ourselves and for Catholics everywhere, but also for other artists to step up and to make other beautiful things that can adorn our homes and sort of just, what is it? I love what G.K. Chesterton says. I'm going to botch the quote, but I love it so much. He says, Christianity, it's a religion that knows it, because it's a religion that knows how to come back from the dead, because it's God knows the way out of the tomb. And right now we're witnessing that. You sort of, when in so many places it seems like it's it's, you know, you look at the church hierarchy today, you look at the mess in our world, and yet something's happening. And it is, people are noticing, it's all these young families with tons of kids. And it's just, there's a life there. And you wonder, where's it coming from? Well, from tradition, from the treasures of the church, and those of us who are trying to rediscover them and then trying to lift them up again, and figure out how to live them. You know, we're a bunch of hobbits. We don't know what we're doing. And, but it's happening. And then, you know, it's happening. And then you have other figures, you know, like Dr. Kwasniewski and other folks who are very well educated, who are speaking. You know, something's coming together. It's like a groundswell, and we're glad to be a part. We're glad to be able to contribute this piece. We're glad that Sophia loves it and is magnified, you know, this project. And honestly, we're just going to keep going day by day and see where God leads us. And we're so glad to get to talk to folks like you. And you know, it's really neat.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we could connect, and we could connect our families and everything. It's really beautiful. I mean, and as you said, talking about the way that this is growing, our Lord compared the kingdom of God to a mustard seed, which is the smallest of all seeds, and yet it grows into a great tree. And this is like what I experience when my son has this moment of clarity or joy or wonder, you know, in these calendars, which is just connecting with the infinite God. There's something that's completely makes us forget about, you know, all these worries about this or that, because there's sort of something greater there. And so once again, please subscribe to the calendars. You can get these for your family, for your kids. Begin to build the liturgy of the home, which is just the beginning for Michaela and Jeremiah and all of us together, as all of us together build Christendom in our families, in our hearts, our souls. And so thank you so much for all of your great work. Thank you for what you're doing. We're so pleased that you're giving this gift to the church.
Thank you for your encouragement.
She's got to draw. She just, you know, she could not draw. I'm glad we were able to found an outlet like this.
Well, if you're wondering what part he plays, I come to him like, what should I do here? I'm stuck on this. So he helps me collaborate a lot. And then between me and then my two sisters helping, we're able to, by God's grace, pull this off. I would not be able to do it alone.
This is a family operation. I just mentioned that. There's 4 of us doing this work. Her 2 sisters, she's 2 younger sisters. One of them does nearly all the painting, and the other does all the digital assembly and stitching, because, you know, like we mentioned earlier, the way these are drawn, they're drawn in pieces and they're stitched together finally at the end, which means we don't really know fully what they look like until we get to the very end, but also enables us to repurpose the imagery multiple other ways. And so the 3 of them, I like to joke, we're running like a little art sweatshop in the back room of our house.
Our master bedroom is our office.
And then I'm doing dishes and running the website and doing all sorts of things.
Homeschooling the kids.
Trying to. Yeah, we need prayers. If you say prayers for us.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Speaking of prayer, well, let's offer up our Father as we do. I wanted to bring up, this is the monthly dedication. This is another thing we didn't even talk about this, but this is another feature that y'all had with the Liturgy of the Home, and I'm sure you'll continue to do this. Mm-hmm. But this is the monthly dedication that you can do as a family, and so this is for the month of April for the Blessed Sacrament. And I think this is very fitting, because I think this art right here really showcases so much the wonder that you are trying to awaken, and by the grace of God you do. And ultimately, it's the Eucharistic face of Jesus that is our greatest wonder, perhaps, on earth.
Yep.
And I think that this painting that you've done really captures that. And so, why don't we offer up? We'll close out. We'll play an Our Father, and for all of the intentions that we're trying to accomplish by God's grace in building the domestic church, and ultimately leading the souls, our own souls, the souls of our spouses and our children, to the Eucharistic face of Jesus. So I'll just pray the first half of the Our Father. Y'all want to pray the second half, and we'll close out. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Jesus is King.